Now we said we'd small talk for a few minutes just as people are joining the Facebook Live, and what we want to talk about is Promise 3 of the Promise Keepers, fatherhood, family.
Yeah.
And, we've met most of each other's kids. David, you and me and Coleman, my son, and your son all skied for a few days up Beaver Creek, and there's something about making relationships among men that I've been saying this a lot. Men make relationships when they do stuff together. And having lunch together is nice, but watching David's awful ski form and then watching them just yard sail it and then making fun of them for the rest of the night, that's what makes for lasting friendship.
That's right. That's exactly right. Oh,
David couldn't keep up with your hot pink skis, Ken.
Dude, he literally we were getting on the lift and then he couldn't decide whether he was going to try to make the lift or not. So finally he just runs up and then sits on my lap in the lift, and the whole lift line is just cracking up because he's just, for a professional baseball player, he sure can't ski.
I had one ski on the ground going this way and the other ski was across, my leg was across your lap and I was doing this and they stopped the lift and I fell off. Harrison, you did nothing but laugh at me. You didn't even lift one mitten to at least grab my ski pole that was locked under my arm.
I did something. I think I threw you off my lap is what I did into the snow.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're on the lift and they stop the lift and you're like, what idiot did something to cause them to stop the lift? And now I know what that looked. Now I was a part of that experience.
You were. That was you. You were the idiot. The cool thing was though, Ken, all joking aside, just the intentionality of getting our boys together. I remember you and I were just sitting there in a restaurant. We were at another meeting in Nashville and you and I were talking and you're like, dude, man, we've got 19-year-old boys. And instantly you're like, let's get intentional. I said, done, let's do it. And my son still to this day told me that was one of the most special trips of his life. It was 2 days long. That was all it was. But that intentionality, and it doesn't always have to be a ski trip, and it could just be an intentional walk. It could be intentional catch in the yard. It could be intentional helping him change his oil, or just, hey, an intentional, hey kid, I'm going to hop in your car. Let's go fill up the tank, just little intentional touches as dads, especially in this day and age, bro. I'm telling you, I have seen as a dad, I've got a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 17 girl, a 15 girl, and a 10 boy. So I kind of cover the swath now. Mm-hmm. And that intentionality is really yielding rich dividends. And I can see where I'm deficient when I'm not intentional.
And Jason, you've got 4 kids.
Yeah, I do. And, so I got a 19 boy, 17 girl, 15 boy, and 11 girl, about to be 11 girl. And I'm wondering why I didn't get the invite to this ski trip with the boys, I mean,
you don't know how to ski, dude.
There's a part of me where my heart just kind of hurt a little bit when I was sitting there listening to that.
I can only handle one Benham for 2 full days.
Well, you picked the wrong one, obviously. He doesn't even know how to ski.
I do so.
And actually, truth be told, you were invited and you couldn't come because your son had a basketball game. So you had your priorities.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And you know what? It ended up paying off. He ended up getting a scholarship, so I don't have to pay for college. So that was definitely worth it.
Where's the scholarship to?
He's going to Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee. It's in the Atlantic Sun Conference.
He turned Liberty down twice. Liberty offered him full ride twice for basketball. Yeah. And the dude turned Liberty down. That's our alma mater, Harrison. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm still mad. Uncle David's mad about this whole situation.
I tell people he's just going to a different LU. It's not Liberty, it's Lipscomb.
If I had the choice between living in Lynchburg or living in Nashville, I would pick Nashville too. So your son's showing wisdom there.
Yeah.
Well, Lipscomb's a little more strict than Liberty.
Are they really? I don't know about that.
That's what I hear.
I'm not going to tell my son that.
Hey, something I told my boys, both of my boys went to college. And of course, my girls are in high school right now. And this is the conversation in the Benham house, right? My youngest daughter's like, Dad, when am I going to get a phone? Dad, when can I get social media? My boys, as I'm talking with them, like we're the generation of parents raising kids with phones. I mean, my dad did not have to raise us with this. I can't imagine if Jason had this when he was 15. Who knows what kind of trouble that kid would have gotten into. But I'll say this, and I'm hoping maybe this will help some folks because I'm hoping it helps me. But I basically said, what kind of person are you? So I'm asking my kids, what kind of person are you? Are you a producer or a consumer? Because if you're a producer, in other words, if you're a hard worker, you spend some time with the Lord, you're shepherding your heart, you're leading yourself, then this in the hand of a producer can become an incredible tool, a tool to help a lot of people, a tool to build in your own life, a tool to get a lot of things done, a tool to advance yourself academically, even socially to a certain extent, financially. But if you're a consumer, which means you're just taking, you're a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. You're not investing in other people or investing in your health or investing in yourself spiritually and academically. If you're a consumer, then this becomes a toy. So this in the hand of a producer becomes a tool. This in the hand of a consumer becomes a toy. The question is, who are you? And so I'm doing my dead level best right now to help my kids understand what it means to be a producer. In other words, you wake up, you make your bed, right? When you're walking into the grocery store, I had my 10-year-old boy with me, and we were walking into the grocery store. And as we were in the parking lot, I grabbed a cart that was just sitting in the middle of one of the parking slots. And I put it away and I said, we can choose to be a part of the solution or a part of the problem. Now my little 10-year-old grabs carts and he puts them away. Awesome. And I'm like, that's how you become a producer. Now, Chase, my youngest boy, if you can show me this spiritually, like you're listening during Devo time, if you can show me this with your health, like you're actually working hard at basketball and other things, then later on in life, when it comes time to get a phone, which is not going to be for quite some time for my 10-year-old, when it comes time to get a phone, then I can trust that that phone's probably going to be more of a tool than a toy for you. And so that's just kind of a way we're trying to navigate this bad boy. And I'm hoping that helps some of the parents, and especially some of the younger parents. I know this, and I heard of this analogy from Dr. Kathy Cook. I wish I would have heard this 15 years ago when I had littles. Now my littles are bigger. But it's like if you think about a funnel, and if you give way too much freedom, like if you invert the funnel this way, if you give way too much freedom as they're younger, as they get older, you have to start restricting, because now all of a sudden they're driving a car, right? Now all of a sudden they've got access to these things, and you start having to restrict more and more and more because you gave way too much freedom when they were young. But now if you flip that around and you tighten it up when they're young, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and when you ask them to do their chores, if they do it right away, all the way with a happy heart, that's a nice little tight boundary. But if you're not doing things like that and you're given too much freedom, you have to restrict as they get older. But if you stay tight when they're young, tight and loving, as they get older, you can expand. And I've seen that with the adjustments I'm making as a dad. And so I can expand their freedom as they get a little bit older, but I made sure to stay a little bit tighter when they were younger. So I've had to learn that lesson the hard way.
It's good advice. Really good.
Yeah.
advice.
Well, most of David's good advice comes because his wife tells him, hey, can you be more like your brother? So
whatever.
He shapes it up a little bit and then he learns something.
Get his 11-year-old daughter on this podcast right now. I would love to hear her.
So you must be so proud. Your son's got a D1 scholarship.
Yeah.
That must be an amazing feeling. How do you, I think, so many parents are pushing their kids so hard to be in athletics. And it's like this tough thing. When I was a kid, I graduated high school in 1985. So before you two were born.
Red Dawn, baby. Was that when Red Dawn was released? Wolverine.
I went and saw that with my football team.
I love it.
That's the best.
Well, it's funny because before phones, I was trying to explain this to my kids recently. The place to be, because I was raised in Gresham, Oregon, so that you did not have a lot going on in Gresham, Oregon, but the place to be was McDonald's. Yeah. And on Friday and Saturday night, everyone was there because that's where you found out what was going on. You had no way of communicating. You had no cell phone.
Yeah.
So the only way to find out who's where, you'd go by and they, I'm looking for Kevin. Oh, Kevin was here 15 minutes ago. He said he was going over here, and you'd have to leave notes with people, and everybody's there with their Duran playing, in their cars. Duran. Then the other cars would have Scorpions playing, and we'd make fun of Duran.
Jason was playing Debbie Gibson.
Tiffany. I'm not scared. David was listening to Cher.
Come on. All right, so keep going, Harrison.
Like a turn back time.
Oh, heck yeah. That's quality music.
Take away the cell phone if I could turn back time, make it not exist. So where was I going? I don't even know where I was going.
You were talking about the place to be, and you were going to go to a movie with your boys. And
Back in 85.
I had some point. I don't know what it was. David, you're never up for lack of words.
hey,
Say something.
I was trying to explain the same thing to my kids, because I'm like, hey, you want to go? Let's go to a movie tonight. This was like a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, I don't want to go to. I told my wife, I said, man, when I was in high school, to go to a movie was like the thing. There was no such thing as video on demand. There was no such thing as any of that stuff. All it was TV, and most of that was Mr. Belvedere and Little House on the Prairie, maybe a little Dukes of Hazzard and the Incredible Hulk. But to go to a movie with your kids, or to go to a movie, man, as a kid was fantastic. But, I have noticed, regardless of when my kids are like, man, saying, oh, I don't want to go, I don't want to do this thing. If I force them to, even my 19 down to my 11, I'm like, no, tonight is family night. We're going to go, we're going to have dinner. Then we're going to go to a baseball game or whatever. At the end of it, they all liked it. And we're creating memories. We're creating memories. Even when I went out to Steamboat, I had my oldest one was like, man, I can't go for 5 days. I got too much stuff to go doing. And I was like, it doesn't matter. You don't have a choice. You're going. And he went, and it was the best time of his life. And we're creating those memories. So, as parents, we can get so discouraged, and it is discouraging because you're like, oh, am I doing the things right? I don't know. But ultimately, just live the life you want your kids to have, get them around people who are living the lives you want them to have, and then create memories together. And then hopefully at the end, you can hold on to Proverbs 22:26 says, in the end, if you train them up the way they should go, they're not going to depart. So we can just hold on to that.
Hey, Ken, I think you were heading down the road of Jason's boy getting a scholarship, and how's that feel as a parent, and sports and athletics and all that other stuff. And then you went back to 1985.
I hate it when I interrupt myself.
He started talking Duran.
I got excited to talk about the Scorpions.
Yeah.
Sports
is the new religion. I mean, now
that's where I was going. So back in those days, you could play all three sports. I played football, basketball, and track. I wasn't a good enough athlete for baseball like you guys. But nowadays, it's so focused, and it's almost unfair to these kids because all the specialized camps, what it takes to be good enough in a sport, unless you're just such a crazy natural athlete, you basically have to be full-time one sport. And then the parents, you're left in the situation of, you're almost obsessive on a sport, where a lot of kids, by the time they get to college, they're so burned out on the sport. It's been their whole life. I've had so many Division I football players tell me they regretted so much playing Division I football because they said, I feel like I never got to go to college. My entire life was just practice and the whole thing. I wasn't a part of the student body. How do you balance that as a parent, trying to drive and discipline your kid enough to be excellent, but also not burning him out or living vicariously through your son, thinking, well, I wish I could have been a Division I athlete, so now I'm gonna just crush him or her so that they'll be one.
I think maybe we can speak at least to a certain extent of this. My boy plays small college basketball. He was an All-American this year. He's gotten looks from a lot of other bigger schools, which is great. It's fun. He loves it. I took a different route with him than what Jason's taken with his kid, and both routes, it just depends on what your conscience is before the Lord. But one thing we know is both of us decided that we have to define what success is as a parent. And we can get sucked in to this culture that success is a 4-year scholarship, or success is all conference, all American, get recruited, whatever. We don't define that as success. Success is faithfulness in the little things, faithfulness to your team and your coach, right? Learning and building character through the difficult times and through the good times, right? That's ultimately success. And what sports actually gives us, and I'm not saying all kids have to play sports, but I am saying there are very few places and contexts where you can put young kids and they come up against another person that wants to force their will on them, right? Or to get really competitive and have to work in a team environment, or to fulfill your responsibility and have someone on top of you demanding excellence, right? Our kids don't usually have that. So sports is a really good context for that. But we as parents have to define, well, what does success look like? So with my 21-year-old, who now is heading into his senior year of college, when he was in high school, we made a decision. We're going to play travel ball, but I'm not going to play on Sunday. Now, it's fine if you want your kid to go to church on Sunday and then play on Sunday. That's a conscience thing. I'm not religious about this, but we made a decision and we sat down, my wife and I sat down with my son and we said, listen, right now, sports has become an idol in this country. And he's like, I see that. And I said, and moms and dads think that success is my son's going to get recognized, my son's going to go to college, or my daughter is going to get recognized and go to college and play sports, you know, on a scholarship. I said, well, that's not success. I would like that. I think that would be a wonderful thing. But success for us is for you to build your character, to grow as a young man of God, and to be involved in ministry and to use this as a platform and a tool for ministry. And as a result, we're not going to play on Sunday, but we will play on a team that'll allow you to play on Saturday. By God's grace, there was always a team that allowed us to play. And that mirrored what Jason and I did. I was drafted by the Mets out of high school. We both signed with Liberty. We both ended up playing. He was with the Orioles. I was with the Red Sox out of Liberty. We didn't play on Sundays when we were in high school because our dad said, boys, you never give up anything in this culture for your faith. The least you can give up is a Sunday with your family and not play sports. Now that's what we chose to do. And I chose to go that route. Now, Jason, fast forward with his kid, one of the top 3-point shooters in the nation, Jason decides we're going to make it a point. We're going to be together to worship together on Sunday. And then we'll go to a game on Sunday afternoon. But the goal is character development. The goal is to take sports and use it as a tool for God's glory and character development, and not a toy just to get a scholarship and to be owned by this travel schedule. So that's so far that we see that that's actually worked. Now, my boy's a senior in college, and I've asked him, hey, what did you think about when we were in travel ball and all this? And he's like, I am so thankful we didn't play on Sunday. I'm so thankful to have that time because I couldn't get it back. And so, you know, this is just kind of the way we're navigating this.
Let me ask you a tougher question. So we talked about sports, and I do want to talk about single parenthood here in a little bit.
Hey, but Ken, you forgot the one thing. You said now sports, you have to focus just on one sport. Like you grew up 3-sport. Well, LeBron James is showing us, though, that you can actually be an NBA player and a police officer at the exact same time. You can do 2 things at once.
Stupid.
So
This guy, is there anything he doesn't know?
You know, a little thing before we flip over. When I got on the LAPD, I was so excited because I had played NAI in basketball, right? And so the LAPD has a department basketball team, and they travel all over America playing other major department basketball teams. And they have a department football team that plays. They play in the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl. They play Miami-Dade. You know, I was so excited. I'm like, I'm gonna play on the LAPD basketball team. Now, LAPD, talking about 9,000 officers,
yeah,
right?
That's big time.
So they said, well, where'd you play? And I went, I played at George Fox College. And they started laughing. They said, there's not a single guy on that team that didn't play in the NBA.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Guy on the football team that didn't play in the NFL. So I don't even know if you can make your divisional, like intramural team. Like it was that.
That's intense.
It was
amazing.
I saw this guy walking around the center for that basketball team was 6'11", had played with the Knicks for like 6 years. You know, Harold Miner, who was like going to be the next Michael Jordan, he was on the LAPD's basketball team. You know,
I remember Harold.
I remember
Miner.
Him.
Baby Jordan.
Baby Jordan.
Yeah.
All right. So off sports, let's ask really the tougher questions. How did you guys deal with pornography with your boys? I mean, again, you talk about the phone, right? They can access it. You know, when we were little, you had to, know some friend's dad who had magazines in the, tucked around them and know where to find them or something. And now it's accessible anytime, anywhere. How have you dealt with that with both your sons and your daughters? Because there's a different way you deal with that issue. People who are struggling right now with that, what's your advice for them?
Okay, so obviously we're in the middle of this with having teenage boys. We're not the guys who've had, a bunch of kids and we've had to walk them through it. But again, like what David said right from the jump, we are the first generation that's had to deal with the technological advances and raise kids at the exact same time. No other generation until this one. Like right here, Gen Xers with these older teenagers. Now I guess Gen Xers have some kids that are getting into their low 20s. So we're having to deal with stuff like they can get it, they can see it anywhere, anytime, no matter what filters that you put on, no matter what parameters you put around them. So what I'm doing is my dead level best to create an environment with my kids and a relationship with my boys to where they can talk with me about it. So at least once a week, I'm asking, what have you seen?
Really?
Let's talk about it.
Wow.
And then not, honestly, you cannot make them feel like you're going to bring the hammer down if they saw something or did something. Like it has to be safe space there. It's like, look, I was a young man too. And I told him the same thing you said, Ken. I'm like, I'm 17 years old. My hormones are going crazy. The only way that I could see it is if one of my buddies' dads had something or whatever, or I didn't have the guts to go to 7-Eleven, because that's where you can get those things. But if I were in your shoes, I promise you, I would be struggling just like you're struggling. And what I need and what I would have needed at that time was for me to be able to talk to my dad.
Yeah.
And so you can talk with me.
Pretty tough. So you felt like, did you feel like you could talk to him?
No, not our dad. No, I mean, a lot of Gen Xers tell you, will have the same testimony as us. It's like, I never felt like I could talk with my parents about
the
these
boomers
things.
were a little different.
Yeah. We're trying to change that to where I can't stop it. I've known people that have tried to put such tight parameters around their 17, 18, 19-year-old boy that, man, they just throw it off when they go to college and it's like straight downhill. So I'm going to put some parameters for sure. There's some boundaries, but what I really want is openness and honesty. Yeah. And when you talk with me, I'm here to help you. So that's where I am. And by God's grace, I think it's helping I got a 15-year-old boy and a 19-year-old boy, and both of them, it's a struggle, but we're talking with them about it.
My 21-year-old and my 19-year-old are very open with me. And that's one of the things is honesty, vulnerability, to let them first to what we're trying to do. And again, we're all in this together. By God's amazing grace, Jason and I, we have high accountability with each other. We have high accountability with a core group of men. So if you're a man, keeping that accountability, it's not just spitting out this stuff to a bunch of random people. They don't deserve that. Only, like I can talk to you, Ken, and Jason and other stuff, but for our boys, I, as a dad, I do not want to create an atmosphere of shame. And because at the end of the day, lust, that lust that's in their heart is fulfilling a God-given need in a God-forbidden way. Like it's God-given in them. Like, if you're not attracted to that naked woman, you're probably, you're nuts. You know what I'm saying? We got to work through this together. And if you're attracted to a naked dude, let's work through this together, right? I don't want to bring a level of shame there, but I want to bring a level of openness and vulnerability. And I want to say, hey, look, I'm your dad. I've struggled too, and here's how we've conquered it. And the verse that I give my boys is Psalm 32:9. And because I don't want to just sit there and control them with controlling measures, which sometimes that's really important, covenant eyes and some of the other things. You don't want to put that stuff on there. But Psalm 32:9 says, do not be, New Living Translation, do not be a senseless horse or mule that needs bit and bridle to keep it under control. Right. And so I really talk to my boys. I say, you don't need bit and bridle. You don't need me constantly with bit and bridle to keep you under control. I said, you need to ask the Holy Spirit to control your heart, to control your emotions. And remember that the principality, the rulers and authorities of darkness, the powers of the air, are creating algorithms and are creating dopamine and oxytocin releases in your brain to create grooves so that you bond to the image of a woman and not to the reality of your wife, right? And that bonding chemical that's taking place is actually creating you to become a monster. And then all of a sudden, the Me Too movement starts screaming about toxic men. Why aren't they dealing with porn? Why aren't we cutting porn off at the root, right? Why aren't we doing that? Because what's happening is there's this God-given need for intimacy. And this is what I'm saying to my boys. There's this God-given need. Hey, high five. That's great. You're a man. But you're fulfilling it in a God-forbidden way, bonding to an image, and it's creating a pathway in your mind and in your brain. It's literally altering your brain. Let's cast that off and not be controlled by bit and bridle just to keep that under control. But let's go after our hearts before God And let's ask God to give us the desires of his heart and be attracted to what he finds attracted, to be unattracted to what he finds unattractive. And as long as we keep it open and we don't bring the shame and the condemnation in, but we keep bringing Jesus in, that's really helped us navigate this. And of course, it's a constant struggle. And there, you know, these boys, we're praying for victory, but we're not fighting for it. We're fighting from it. So we just keep putting them to Jesus.
What age do you start talking about it?
The earlier, the better. I mean, when my young son was
3?
What's that?
like
Baby? Yeah, no.
You know,
My young son was 11 when he went to school. Once he got into, I think it was 11, he was in the 5th grade going into the 6th grade. And I'm like, some of these 6th graders, you know, they're in school with 8th graders. And I know those 8th graders, you know, are getting Snapchatted and are going to probably show him something. So I'm like kind of preemptively jumped that at 11 and started to slowly explain things to him more at 12. But then by the time he's 13, I'm like, look, there's nothing that I don't know. There's nothing that I don't know about. When you hear of something, when someone shows you something, and I'm just telling you, man, even the Christian schools, and my son goes to a Christian school, it's a godly place. I don't care if they're homeschool, Christian school, public school. These other kids are showing them things and talking about things that you as a parent better doggone be talking with your kids about. Otherwise, they're getting their education from somewhere else. So for me, I mean, I was like 11, 12 years old, getting with my sons, talking with them about things. And then just saying, if someone you know, because you know how it is, Kim, when you're a young boy, 12, 13, and one of your buddies says something that like has sexual connotation, you don't know what it is. You don't pretend like you don't know what it is, because then you get laughed at. So I told my boys, I said, that's going to happen. And when it happens, you come home and I'll explain to you what it is. You know, and they have come home, they're like, Dad, so-and-so said this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my ears just heard that. Okay, well, let me tell you what that is. And then the kids, you know, it's uncomfortable, but I would rather educate them in that.
Yeah.
And
And
keep
I would
that
say
openness than somebody else.
I would jump in and say, for me, all 3 of my boys were different. Now my youngest is 10. I did it based on what the questions that they were asking. And I would lob, like 6 months ago, my 10-year-old, you know, he's 10 and a half. And he asked me, he goes, Dad, Winnie, which is our dog, Winnie's twerking on my leg. And I'm like, push the dog off, Chase. He's like, and I said, you know what twerking is? He goes, no, but I saw her twerking. She was moving her hips like this. And I said, come here. So he comes over and I said, listen, she's just doing what dogs do. They were meant to twerk with each other, a boy dog and a girl dog. And I said, believe it or not, you know, boys and girls, moms and dads, they twerk too. And he goes, oh, I don't want to hear this. So I knew he wasn't ready. I lobbed it out there just wanting to see if he wanted to explore twerking. He didn't. Now, my other 2 boys, it was around 12, 11-ish, 12, when they were ready for it. I just lobbed. I was driving to Dick's Sports with my son, and I asked him a couple of questions. My oldest boy asked him a couple of questions, and I knew he instantly started turning and was inquisitive, and I knew that's my moment. When he was like standoffish, I knew he wasn't ready for it. So I don't know that it's an exact age, but you also have to discern if he's standoffish because he wants to hide something, or if he's standoffish because he doesn't trust you. And that's really where dads, and for the same thing with our daughters have to trust us. And one of the things that my wife and I have done, and I am so thankful of this, because we've kind of had to navigate this in the last 5 years. Your kid does not always need to be on your Instagram and always on your social media feed and you're videoing them all the time. Put the dang thing down, be fully present with them, because I noticed several of my buddies, very close friends, that some of their daughters were getting incredibly upset because they always had to be on. They never knew when I'm telling my parents how I'm feeling, are my parents now going to turn around and go and teach people, hey, here's how I'm helping my daughter get through masturbation, right? It's like, what? Stop. Don't expose your kids. Even if it makes your platform bigger and you're some social media, leader or influencer, stop that nonsense. So my wife and I put the phones down. I will never talk about my kids publicly in any way. unless it's a blessing to them. And so one of the things
And unless it involves twerking.
twerking with Chase. That's right. But here's the thing, is that they've got to be able to trust us as parents, right? And so we have to open up. And I've seen this succeed. I've also seen it not succeed in my life. If I blab my mouth, whatever, and I just have to be very, very trusting and fully present. And hopefully that will facilitate the conversations in a safe place for our kids to come directly to us.
Your kids need to know that you'll do whatever it takes to defend them. And parents, if you're getting ego off of your kids, and start talking about sports, now we're talking about, Instagram, your kids got to know they are not there to make you look better.
That's
You
right.
just make them look better. Boy,
That's
the
right.
conversation we centered around boys, but what about girls? We all have daughters. Now, for me personally, I had the conversation with my boys right before puberty, and mine was pretty harsh. It was I like yours better, but mine did work. Mine was, if I catch you, and I'll look at your phone or your computer whenever I want, I'll have all your passwords, and if I ever see porn on there, you missed this next sports season.
Yeah.
Go play. So
That's great.
but mine worked. Now, I never talked to my daughter about it. My wife did, because she's about to be 26. So it was right at that cusp where it had not occurred to me, and smartphones had just kind of come out, that stuff was available yet. And so it wasn't really an issue. But for people now, do you talk to your daughter in a different way than you did your sons? How do you deal with that? Because for your daughter, it's two things, right? For your son, it's don't be a victim of this and don't treat women with disrespect. But for your daughter, it's don't be a victim of this, maybe a little bit different, and don't be treated with disrespect, because boys are out there looking at this, and those boys are seeing you as objects. And boy, just because he's giving you attention doesn't mean he sees you as a human being.
That's right.
How do you talk to your daughters, and maybe is that a different age, and maybe do you leave that just to your wife, or do you do it? And then lastly, because I'm throwing like that 5,000 questions at you, what about a single parent who's watching this going, single moms going, I don't have a husband to talk to my boys about this. What do I do? So I'm like an attorney. I'm giving you so many questions, I'll confuse you.
No, yeah. If you're married, men, obviously, I think it's more comfortable for the daughters if the wife handles it. But yet there's still that openness with the dad. I've had a conversation with I've got a 17-year-old daughter, had conversations as well about this, but just the angle that I'm going at with my daughter, which is different than the boys. But the angle I'm going at with my daughter is that God made your body sacred. He made it holy, like the body that he gave you, and he made it attractive so that another boy, at some point, your husband, would want to look at it and be with you physically, so that you guys can have babies and you guys can experience intimacy. But now, how do you handle holiness? Right. So you remember when the Ark of the Covenant in the book of Judges, when it was captured by the Philistines, and then it went to Beth Shemesh, and the men in the town of Beth Shemesh were like, hey, we've heard about this Ark, let's look in it. Right. And they wanted to peek on holiness. So they open it up, and they end up getting like tumors and dying, because they're looking at holiness with an eye of curiosity. So I tell my young boys, that curiosity, like it says in Proverbs, the eye of a man is never, it's always going to want more. You got to be careful how you look at purity and how you look at holiness, which is the female body. But then I flip around with my daughter, you got to be careful how you present yourself, because there is something in you that wants to be looked at. And when you want to be looked at, you're going to internalize it, and it might cause you to start looking at something. Right? Because you want to see what other girls look like, and then it might touch some part of you. And then what that does, Satan, is then he creates confusion, and he starts to create that confusion. And so my angle with the girls is different. It's more of like, how are you treating your body? Now, granted, we're all in this together. Like I keep saying, man, I have to say that picture ain't gonna work. You need to pull that one off. Take that picture offline now. That kind of thing. Boys, don't be looking at that type of stuff. And then as a single mom having to deal with your young boys, our mom never really talked with us much about it. We didn't really get to talk to our dad much about it. But one of the things that our mom did do was that she created kind of a safe space for me and David, to where I know that if we ever did have to say, hey, mom, I did this or whatever, that mom was more from the angle of, so long as you're honest with me and open, we can work through it. Like that, coming from a mother's perspective. Single parent, single dad having to talk to a daughter, same thing. Open, honesty.
Yeah.
These are things that I'm trying, that I'm praying work, and I believe that they will. But like Buzz, like what you said, in the same way that we can go on 15 different diets and all of them are going to work, the key is you want your kid's heart more than anything, not just behavior. I'm not here for behavior change. I'm here for heart change. And the only way that you experience heart change is for open and honesty with each other.
And this is why Jesus gave us the church. This is why there's the command to be plugged into the local body, because there's the fatherless there's the fathers to the fatherless, right? In the local context of the church. And I would say if you're a single mom and you've got a young teenage boy, or not even teenage, prepubescent, I would say you need to be plugged into a local body, and a local body where they're actually meeting, a local body where they actually have men that are involved in the guys' lives with incredible accountability and all of these other things. That is absolutely crucial. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel and come up with some new parachurch ministry and all that. And a lot of the parachurch ministries are great, but they should simply support the local context of the congregation. And so plugging into the local body, but also plugging into the family. Like my dad is very much involved in my kids' lives, and he can speak to them about other things that Lori and I just kind of can't get through on certain levels. And of course, for a single parent, that's incredibly helpful, but the local body. But then in terms of our daughters, again, it goes back to winning the heart and defining success, and asking your daughter, saying, what does the culture say success is for a 16-year-old girl right now, right? It's dress scantily, how many likes, how many views, how many boys are looking at you, right? All this stuff, or even athletic achievement. And then pretty much pushing that aside and saying, what does God view as success? And then just keeping that ahead of them, a gentle and a quiet spirit, a servant's heart, right? These types of things. Modesty is pleasing to the Lord. And when we begin to redefine what success looks like, and as fathers, especially with our daughters, treating our wives the way that they need to be treated, and treating our daughters the way that they need to be treated. Like I opened the car door for my wife. I make sure that my boys are opening the doors to the mall or the grocery store for my daughters. And I always tell my daughters, look, no boy that objectifies you visually is worth your time ever. And so don't give boys an opportunity to objectify you, because that's what boys will do. Even boys that can't help it. And then I go back to Winnie dog, right? Winnie can't even help it. She starts twerking. It's like, stop. She's a dog, for heaven's sake. I said, don't give boys the opportunity. So anyway, we're working through these things, but these are just some of the things that we feel God has given us maybe the idea is to just keep these things ahead. But what we've really seen is that you got to have their heart. You got to have openness. You got to be talking to them on a myriad of levels, so that they know that they have a safe place, and where they've got a defender that's going to help them get through these things.
My daughter called me from Liberty her freshman year and said, Dad, and my daughter and my wife both dress, you know them both very modestly, but her dresses only came down to the top of her kneecap. And so she's like, they said that the dresses have to come to the bottom of my kneecap. So they need to be 2 inches longer. So I need all new dresses. And, they said it's because if I dress, showing my full kneecap, it'll cause the men to lust. Dad, what do you think about that? And I said, baby, I used to hear that all the time too. And I'll just tell you, it is not your problem if men lust. You are not responsible for the sin of somebody else. And so let's make that very clear. It is one of those godless lies from Satan that somehow women are responsible when men lust. But God loves a woman who dressed modestly. Why? Because what you have is something very precious for your future husband.
That's right.
And you want what you have to be something that's for him only. And so don't dress modestly to keep some other guy from sinning. Dress modestly because you know that what you have is precious and awesome. And someday your husband's going to be the only one who got to see it.
That's
I
Boom.
think
right.
it's an important thing to say to people.
That's really good,
I bet
man.
your daughter like that.
Buzz, I couldn't have said it better myself, but I'm gonna start saying it and I'm gonna take credit for it.
I'm just glad I got to say something profound because you guys have been throwing bombs, man. And I'm just
No chance, man.
Yeah.
okay. So last question on this. Single mom, sons. She really wants to have men influence her sons. How does she find men that can mentor her boys that she can trust? Because we hear so much nonsense right now. And so if you're a single mom, you're terrified, like, man, I got a 5-year-old or a 12-year-old or whatever. And I so want men to teach him and pour into him and do things like teach him how to fly, how to fly fish, how to tie a knot, how to sharpen a knife, how to build a wall, whatever, throw a baseball. But how do I find guys that I can trust and I don't have to worry about my son being abused?
Yeah.
Advice do you have?
Well, I echo exactly what David said with local church. I mean, it's meant to be the family for the family, right? Your local church, you're meant to be in that context. And obviously there are parachurch ministries. Anybody connected with Promise Keepers, you can trust. It's not one of those fly by night. We just came up ministry in the last 2 or 3 years and we have really cool music and we all wear skinny jeans. Look, some guys wear skinny jeans. Ken, I'd love to see you in a pair and some elf boots, but
How
maybe
about
it
a
works. Maybe it
dopey
doesn't.
hat and a marf, a man scarf?
Yeah, I know that, but a number one is the local church. And look, to the mom who's got the son like that, if that's really important to you, which it should be, for your young sons, you take that request to God and then you start paying attention. And I promise you, you will find a place where there are men you can trust who can help shape your young boy.
Yeah.
It will happen.
I would say 3 things specifically for me. And here I am, a dad, very involved in my children's lives. My sons, my 3 boys, 2 daughters. And yet I pray consistently, Lord, please bring men alongside my boys that can mentor them. Please bring women alongside my girls that can mentor them along the narrow way, along the path of righteousness. And so I did 3 things specifically. Number 1, athletics. That is it's an incredible opportunity. Not all the coaches are going to be there. You've got to reach out on Facebook to your little community and find out where are the good sports programs, who are the good coaches, and really try to be intentional there. Obviously, you're not going to be some helicopter parent, try to control everything. But so athletics, number 1 for me is what I did. Number 2, Boy Scouts used to fill that void, Ken. It doesn't do it anymore. Now it's Trail Life. Trail Life USA. I signed up. I went through the background check. I'm telling you, Ken, it took me like 2 weeks to finish the background check and the criminal check. I mean, just everything that they did. I had to run through this whole training program.
Wow.
I love Trail Life USA. I really like them. They're now nationwide. They're doing incredible things. They're helping kids with fly fishing, how to change oil, how to build a wall, how to be a servant leader. And it's really tied into scripture. I love Trail Life USA. And then number 3, since we're here in the Bible Belt, we've got Awanas, and I've had some phenomenal mentors in my kids' lives through Awanas. And I have utilized those 3, athletics, Trail Life, and Awanas, to really even come alongside me so the single mom can do that. And I know there are other things out there, and I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be exclusive. I know there's some other good opportunities out there, but really be in prayer, be tied into the local church, ask the moms that have been there, done that. And now the ministries that are the parachurch ministries specifically to help shape boys that are out there, they have incredible accountability measures. If they don't, do not mess with it. But they've got incredible accountability measures because, we've been able to take it to the next level with technology and these other things, which is a very good opportunity.
I coached my son's basketball team when he was 8. And I never could care less if they won the game. I mean, they could barely get the ball over the rim. The parents would get upset with me because I didn't get upset. It's like, whatever. I'm just trying to teach these kids character. But there's one kid on there I really took a liking to because he had a single mom, and she was just so you could tell she didn't really know what she was doing. And so I try to really give him special instruction and play him a lot, even though he couldn't even dribble the ball. and just would help them out. So 6 months later, we're going by a movie, pizza outside, you know, and I see the kid sitting there. And so I walk up thinking, I don't really want to, I'm with my family, but so I walk up and I go, hey, I can't remember his name. Let's call him Jason. I go, hey, Jason, you working hard in your basketball? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you're working hard on your left hand, you know, and everything like I showed you. And yeah. And so I give him a few things and I'm feeling good about myself. And I'm walking away thinking I made an impact on this kid's life. And I hear him lean over to his mother and go, who's that? So that's how much of an impact I made on this kid's life that 6 months later, he didn't even know who I was.
That's great. Yeah, but you never know, man. That might come back. I mean, shoot, who knows? Isn't that what's that verse, Dave, where it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters"? You don't know what. Get it out there because you don't know what's going to come back. So, I you know, totally get your kid in the church, get them into sports leagues, and certainly God, if listen, pray and fast about it, and God will answer your prayer. He's a good father.
And another thing for the single mom, especially if you've got the teenage boys, a teenage boy, food is everything. And I took my kids through the Conquer
I
series.
find that to be true for a 50-year-old man too. I don't know.
Yeah, but I took my boys through the Conquer series, and a single mother could have done this. Literally, you just order the Conquer series, invite 4 or 5 of your son's friends over, make the meal killer. Like, make it killer. And that's what my wife said when I travel. She makes the meals amazing when the boys and their friends come. And then you can put the Conquer series on. You go in the other room and let the boys watch it. And you just say, look, you watch the Conquer series, and 45 minutes later, you come out, we're going to have dessert. Trust me, they'll go in and watch that stuff and come back out for dessert.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, just those little touches. And the dudes on the Conquer series, I mean, as a former Air Force pilot, the guy is amazing. They're talking about the brain science of pornography and stuff. And I swear by it. I've watched it multiple times now. I've taken multiple guys through it, and it's really good. And I think that would be just a little tip for some of the moms that are out there to do that.
That is good stuff. Jason, last word before we sign off?
Yeah, you know, I think there are 4 stages of parenting. I think it starts out where you're a babysitter, and in babysitter phase, you just got to make sure that they stay alive and their heart keeps beating. Then it moves into referee. The referee is the one who outlines the rules and blows the whistle when the rules are infracted. The next stage would be a coach, where now I'm not trying to blow the whistle. I'm trying to teach you how to be successful inside of those rules. But ultimately, the last phase would be a teammate. This is where you actually join in the team, and it's like, we want to win this game. I've been trying to teach my kids, if you honor me as your babysitter, as your referee, and as your coach, one day I'll be the best teammate you've ever had. But please, at the level of a coach, like, you know, for a 17-year-old girl, like right now, I should be your coach. I'm teaching you how to win in life, right? But if you keep infracting the rules and I have to blow the whistle, you're moving me back into referee stage. And ultimately I have to become a babysitter again. And I'm not a good babysitter. Like we're supposed to be teammates. So I teach my kids that if you honor me in the first 3 phases, you're going to have a teammate for life. But if you don't, then in the same way that God says, if you don't honor me, I stand against you. It's like, it's not God wanting to stand against us. He becomes an opponent when he could be our teammate, right? And all it takes is obedience. So that's what I'm trying to pour into my kids. And I am praying and fasting and really trusting the Lord that will pay off, and we can get them all to the level where we're good teammates.
That's good. Hey, David, last word and then pray us out.
Yeah. Well,
Don't let him one up me.
I think as
It looked
parents,
like he was starting to cry, and I was worried. So I was
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I had a lump in my throat. As parents, you know, the other day I was sitting on my steps with my cup of coffee, and I was looking out at my yard, and for the first time, my yard actually looks nice. It looks better than Jason's, because I've been fertilizing my own yard. Jason don't fertilize his own yard. He's got some company doing it because he's too prima donna. But anyway, so I'm fertilizing my yard, and I'm thinking, man, I'm pushing this fertilizer. I'm pushing the spreader, and it seems like it barely spreads the stuff, right? I'm like, how could this possibly work? It's so small, such a small amount. And I remember I was cutting the bag to pour more into the spreader. When I cut the bag, I cut it too big and it spilled out in a huge pile on my lawn. So I had to hurry and scoop that stuff into the spreader. Well, I'm sitting there drinking my coffee several weeks later, and I noticed this big, huge burn spot in the middle of plush green lawn. And it dawned on me at that moment, the Lord spoke to me that we as parents are to spread the fertilizer of truth into our kids' lives. We're not to dump it on them and just pile up on them, right? And that's my nature, is like, because I operate in fear, not in faith quite often. I'm like, I got to get all this truth out. I got to make sure they know everything, and they got to act perfect, and they can't infract, and they can't do all these other things, right? And I end up burning them out. And so I've been very encouraged just to spread the love and the truth and the authenticity and a safe place in my home to come to me, and let's grow together. We're growing, and I'm sprinkling truth. I'm sprinkling the word of God. I'm not burying their heads in it, but I'm sprinkling it. And you know what? God brings the sun and God brings the rain. And so he works with me as I'm spreading the fertilizer in the lawn. He gives the sun and the rain, and the three of us together, well, I'd say the three of us, me with the sun and the rain that God sent, have really yielded a nice looking little lawn. And I think it's the same way with our kids. You know, God, we have to pray that he sends the sun, that he sends the rain in their lives, the Holy Spirit, the word, good worship, good community, good friends, other mentors. He's got to bring that. And then we just have to be faithful to spread the fertilizer and not dump it out on them and burn them out.
That is awesome. You guys were awesome. Pray us out, David.
All right, Lord, we love you, God. We need you. I know Ken needs you. Jason needs you. I need you. And every person, Lord, that's watching and listening to this, we need you, Lord. And so we're asking for your sunlight and your water in our own lives. And Lord, especially in the lives of our kids. And I pray we would be faithful to spread the fertilizer of truth, your word, Lord, your love, a listening ear, a helping hand, Lord, a safe place for our kids to be vulnerable. I pray we would spread that into their lives in delicate, loving ways. And Lord, that we wouldn't just pile on and burn them out. So God, give us strength, give us grace. We love you, Lord. We know that you've given our children to us as stewards. So we've got to be faithful stewards. So we love you and we commit to that stewardship in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.